Hello and welcome back to our channel. In this video we explore 5 of the prettiest villages in Suffolk, from a charming seaside town to a village washed away by the sea and the birthplace of Harry Potter. Suffolk has it all.
Walberswick, just over the River Blythe from Southwold, feels like a village almost untouched by time. Chocolate box cottages surround a pretty village green with quaint cafes and shops adding to the picturesque feel. Crabbing is a major activity in Walberswick, perfect for families. The village even hosted the British Open Crabbing Championship from 1981 to 2010, and I bet you didn't even realise there was such a competition. You could choose to arrive in Walberswick on the traditional rowboat ferry from Southwold across the River Blythe. The ferry has operated here since 1236 and the current service is operated by Danny, who is the 5th generation of her family to operate the Walberswick ferry. Another claim to fame is that Walberswick is home to actor David Morrissey, the governor in the series The Walking Dead, but we're happy to say that the village bears no resemblance at all to that fictional post-apocalyptic world, and there are almost no zombies. On the way out of town, be sure to stop at St Andrew's Church. Here you can see the 4th church to exist here, right in the ruins of the 3rd. A really interesting feature.
In the heart of rural Suffolk, the quaint, picturesque village of Lavenham has a magical charm, and the leisurely, relaxed pace makes it the perfect spot for a weekend break. Once a prosperous wool town, Lavenham oozes a spellbinding beauty, with timber-framed medieval buildings lining narrow streets. One of the most well-preserved medieval villages in England, Lavenham is famous for appearing in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, and over 300 of its enchanting buildings are listed as being of architectural and historical interest, including the Church of St Peter and St Paul, the Guildhall and De Vere House. The Guildhall is one of the most recognisable buildings in Lavenham. Now a National Trust property housing a social history museum and tea room, it was originally a religious guild founded to regulate the wool trade. In its 500-year history, it's also been a prison, wool store and a poorhouse, not to mention the birthplace of everyone's favourite wizard. The Guildhall was transformed into Harry Potter's parents' ruined house. Filming in the village was cloaked in secrecy and took place in January 2010. The buildings were filmed and then their appearance was altered magically using CGI. The actors were filmed in a studio, then superimposed. Built as a hunting lodge for the wealthy De Vere family in the 1300s, De Vere House on Water Street also featured as part of Godric's Hollow. Different parts of the house were pasted together and could be seen opposite a fictional graveyard with a Christmas tree in the window. Rumours suggest the house is haunted. Perhaps it's nearly Headless Nick. St Peter and St Paul's Church is a Grade 1 listed church and is a must-see if you're visiting Lavenham, as it's one of the most visited churches in East Anglia. A church has existed here since Anglo-Saxon times, and the church was rebuilt in stone in the 14th century. The church was built by the wealthy wool merchants of Lavenham and was added to and modified several times to showcase the wealth of its rich benefactors. Little Hall in Lavenham is a late 14th century hall house on the main square. Run entirely by volunteers, it's now a museum and is one of the oldest buildings in Lavenham. The village has lots to offer. Foodies will love the abundance of restaurants, history buffs can book on a guided walking tour of the village and soak up the magical medieval history, whilst film lovers can spot some of their favourite film locations. Not to mention the spa, independent shops, galleries and boutiques. There really is something for every muggle in Lavenham.
Aldborough is a cultural gem on the Suffolk coast and is world famous due to its connection with the composer Benjamin Britten. He called the town home and founded the Aldborough Literary Festival, which takes place each June. Aldborough is also famous for its fantastic fish and chips from the Aldborough Fish and Chip Shop. However, queues can get very, very long, so be sure to arrive early. A walk along the 1 kilometre crag path or promenade is a must. Along the way you can check out the beautiful pastel coloured seafront pads, the Tudor Moot Hall, which dates from the 16th century, and the mouth-watering seafood huts. If the fish was any fresher, it would still be swimming. At the end of the prom, be sure to check out the imposing scallop sculpture, a gleaming 15-foot stainless steel installation dedicated to Benjamin Britten by its creator, Maggie Hambling. Keep going a little way further and you'll reach Thorpe Ness, a wonderfully quaint but busy village, centred around a large boating lake where you can rent rowboats and kayaks and paddle the afternoon away. It's well worth a stroll around the village to see some of the beautiful buildings, including the Haven and Windlands, original holiday cottages built between 1911 and 1914, and the now famous House in the Clouds, which is also available to rent out for a holiday. Just opposite that, also commanding a great hilltop location, is a really well preserved windmill. At the other end, at the far south of the crag path, is the very impressive Martello Tower, the largest in a string of such towers built in the 1800s to protect the Felixstowe Peninsula from invasion from Napoleonic forces. It's now owned by the Landmark Trust and you can stay here from a mere £600 for 4 nights. On the high street you'll find an abundance of shops, cafes and restaurants to complete your day. We really did enjoy our day in Aldborough.
With its history of rope making, sail making and boat building, arty, creative, historic Woodbridge is a real gem. Situated on the banks of the River Deben and on the edge of an area of outstanding natural beauty, this vibrant market town is the perfect base to explore the nearby attractions. Woodbridge was recently voted one of the best places to live by the Times, and it's easy to see why, with its eclectic mix of independent shops, boutiques, brightly coloured buildings and winding lanes. Shire Hall is a busy hub and a picturesque focal point for the town. Built in 1575, the upper floors were used for judicial purposes, while the ground floor was used as an open corn market. Nowadays, the hall is host to seasonal food, vintage and craft markets. Tide Mill, the most loved part of Woodbridge and an iconic local landmark, is one of only 2 working tide mills in the country. The mill operated for over 800 years and is now a living museum that still produces flour. After visiting the mill, take a stroll along the banks of the tranquil River Deben and admire the colourful houseboats. Foodies should be sure to coincide their visit with the Woodbridge Shuck, an annual shellfish festival that showcases local seafood producers. There's plenty to see nearby too. Sutton Hoo is an awe-inspiring place and home to one of the most important archaeological discoveries in the UK, an Anglo-Saxon ship burial, discovered by an inquisitive landowner and a self-taught archaeologist. Recent Netflix film, The Dig, has sparked an increased interest in this fascinating place. Be sure to check out the display in the house, chronicling the discovery by archaeologist Basil Brown. Best of all, four-legged friends are welcome at Sutton Hoo. Also nearby is the Suffolk Punch Trust, a charity dedicated to breeding and preserving the Suffolk Punch horse, a horse breed rarer than the giant panda. The petting zoo, tractor rides and museum make a great family day out. A spooky place to visit near Woodbridge is Rendlesham Forest. In December 1980, witnesses reported flashing lights that hovered for 3 hours in one of the most famous UFO sightings in the UK. A forest trail takes you to some of the areas connected with the sightings.
The tiny village of Dunwich has a mighty past which now lies at the bottom of the sea. Where waves now rule was once a thriving medieval port which rivalled even London. However, storms and coastal erosions have erased all trace of the busy port, but if you visit Dunwich Museum, through its displays and its wonderful staff, you can learn all about it. If you love nothing more than getting out for a walk in the fresh air, then Dunwich Heath should definitely be on your list with its stunning landscape and rare wildlife. You'll also want to stroll along the seaside cliffs and admire the stretching coastal views. For history lovers, a visit to the Dunwich Greyfriars is a must. The beautiful 13th century friary ruins are one of the most important ancient monuments in Suffolk. The monastery was established in the 1250s, originally nearer the sea, but was destroyed in 1286 in the same storm that wiped out the port. The entire monastery once consisted of a magnificent 54-metre long church and accommodation for pilgrim travellers, the monks and the abbot. The wonderfully eerie remains you'll see today are those of the refectory where the monks would have eaten. The entire site was enclosed by a wall, much of which, albeit repaired over the centuries, remains today, as do 2 of the 3 imposing gates. When you consider that this was all built in the 14th century in what is now a beautiful but small village, it really gives you some idea of the importance of Dunwich through the centuries. We hope you've enjoyed this video. We certainly enjoyed checking out some of Suffolk's prettiest villages. We'd love to hear what you think, so leave us a comment below, and if you're not already subscribed, please consider doing so. It means a world of difference to us. But meanwhile, thanks very much for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.